Welcome to the Freedive Café, episode 13, with Sheila Hanney. My name is Donnie, host of the Freedive Café. The Freedive Café is long-form interviews that get into the backstories, the training, the challenges, the passions and fears and personal philosophies of the merry band of breath holders known as freedivers. The Freedive Café can be found at freedivecafé.com. All the episodes and show notes can be found there. Make sure you visit the Facebook page too. Go to facebook.com/freedivecafépodcast and you'll find it there. Hit the like button and share it with your friends, of course. So this week I launched 2 new sections on the website. There is now a resources page where you can find instructors and schools on a handy map. So you can just go to the map, check out an area and see where the closest schools and instructors are. There aren't many listed now, but hopefully that should improve quickly. The resources page will eventually also include links to YouTube channels, books which I link to in Amazon, and eventually there will be a research section where I'll compile studies and scientific material on freediving physiology and that kind of thing. If you have any suggestions for information or material that should be included on the Freedive Café resources page, please get in touch and let me know. I've also started a written blog. The blog is a way for me to write my thoughts and experiences about freediving, as well as document my own training journey. There may also be written interviews and reviews of products and stuff like that. I love to invite anyone with a good article to share it on the blog. If you want to write for the blog or already have something to share, let me know. The first blog post is a personal one and gives you a little insight into my own backstory and how I came to freediving and how I came to develop the podcast. If you want to find out a bit more about me, then you can head over to the website, check out the new blog page and read that post. Today's interview is a little different than the usual athlete-centered episode. We're going to switch gears a little for today and learn a bit about Sheila Hanney's experiences with the Sea Shepherd organization and ocean conservation. Sheila Hanney was born in the UK and has now been resident in Dahab for 4 years and also volunteering for Sea Shepherd for the same time. She spends about half her time in Egypt and half her time on ships in Mexico feeding the crew. She's a freediving instructor and judge at the Red Sea Cup competitions in the world-famous Blue Hole in Dahab. Of herself, she says she is not the deepest diver, but she's seriously zen. Her interest in the ocean now is very much concerned with conservation work. We all want clean seas and abundant wildlife, and as freedivers, she feels we are in a unique position to promote ocean awareness. She currently runs Egypt's only fully vegan restaurant, the Marine Garden Camp, which is also plastic-free. I had a lovely time talking to Sheila. I hope you enjoy the episode and the subject matter. All Sheila's show notes and links can be found on the episode page on the website. If you want to start a conversation about the episode, you can do that in the comments there. Okay guys, let's dive. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for coming on the show.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, where are you from actually? You're from the UK. Whereabouts in the UK?
I grew up 30 miles south of London, so like fairly inland. And then I moved when I was younger to near Bristol and Bath. And then the last few years I've been living on a narrowboat on the canal, and then I basically wanted to spend more and more time by the water. I've been coming to Dahab for 11 years, but finally I sort of made the move and escaped Europe, so I'm here now.
So you're permanently I know that you spend some of your time in Mexico and some of your time in Dahab at the moment, but would you call Dahab your home now?
Yeah, I'm based here now. Yeah, I have no responsibilities in England anymore. So yeah, I'm based here for the foreseeable future.
Sounds good.
Yeah, no, it is good. living by the sea is ideal, really. So yeah, I'm happy and lucky.
Nice. So this interview is a little bit different in the sense that freediving is not the absolute main focus, but we're also going to talk about your work in ocean conservation. But of course, we'll be looking at both areas. But what came first? Was it the freediving or the ocean conservation?
A mixture, I think. I mean, I gradually got more and more interested in diving and spent more time diving. But I mean, also one of the things here in Dahab that a lot of people see is the amount of plastic in the water. So it was like a gradual, like hand in hand symbiosis of spending more time in the water and becoming more aware of the problems. I did a scuba course 4 years ago, and it was surveying and like finding out more about the ecology here, and that sort of got me more interested in the conservation work. And from there I applied to Sea Shepherd and started with Sea Shepherd.
So how did you first discover freediving? Like, what was your first exposure to that? Was it some courses, or who introduced you to it?
11 years ago, when I first came to Dahab, my friend just dived down on the reef and I tried to follow, and then my ears hurt, and he was like, oh, you have to equalize. So he showed me how to equalize. And then for years, I just like bobbed about on the reef and just explored by myself and learned to equalize and got a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And then I got to a certain depth and I was like, right, I don't want to do anything more by myself. And then a couple of years ago, I had the money that I could spend on the courses, and so I started doing the IDA courses. My instructor's Wendy Tinnemans, and she's based here as well, and she's super instructor. So yeah, I did the courses with Wendy, and then I did my instructor course with Wendy as well, and yeah, got more and more involved basically over the last few years since I've been based here. So I have the time and the energy to do it here.
Right. So you, it's only the last 2 years that you worked through your courses, but you've been in the water for the best part of a decade, right? And you've been exploring and trying to dive a little bit. At what depth did you decide it was time to get some professional assistance, if you can put it that way?
Yeah, around like between 15 and 20, because basically, I didn't have that much knowledge, which is often a dangerous thing. But I'd also sort of heard, you're negatively buoyant after those sort of depths. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing that on my own. That's just silly. And then I decided, it was time to do the courses. But it made the courses nice and easy and fun, really, as well, because I think all those years of just doing fairly shallow diving, I'd built up a good dive reflex. So it came quite naturally to get deeper and, with good guidance and more instruction. I also did a course with Sarah Campbell as well when I was first here. And that was really good, because just completely different approach to diving and being much, much more relaxed in the water. And it was just fun. It wasn't one of the courses. It was just a 3-day fun and playing in the water. And that was good. That was very useful as well.
And do you just dive for fun basically, or for your work? Are you interested in the competition style diving on the buoy and the line and the ropes?
Yeah, I do that. I was in the water today with my friend, and we're training in Lighthouse. We got the Blue Hole here, and we've also got Lighthouse Bay, and you can get to 50 meters in the Lighthouse Bay as well for training. And we're just doing some technical work, practicing equalization. So I like to go and look at stuff, and I also just like to train as well, and buddy, and it's just nice to spend time in the water as well. So it's all fun.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite freediving discipline?
Constant weight bifins, I think, at the moment is the one that I enjoy doing, just because I think less people do it. So I'm always interested a bit more in some sort of niche, and I like that one. So I'm doing that one at the moment.
Nice. So do you also do some other kinds of activities, like some other kind of training that assists with your freediving, some kind of cross training or yoga or something like that?
I do practice yoga daily. I did a lot of yoga with Sarah, because she runs courses here and runs weekly classes. At the moment, because I've taken up running a restaurant here, I'm fairly busy and pushed for time, but I'm still doing a daily practice. And obviously working in the restaurant, I'm staying fairly fit from just working at the moment. So yeah, I have less time for push-up training. But last year I was here just training. I was lucky enough to have the time and the money to just train. And then, yeah, for sure, I was doing yoga like every day, stretching every day. And yeah, more training.
Yeah. And was yoga something that you started doing many years ago, or is that something that's new to you since you started living in Dahab?
I started doing yoga about a decade ago when I was living on a narrowboat, basically because I was living in such a small space. I decided that I needed to do like active stretching, active exercise, just to ward off the effects of living in a tiny space and not moving around so much. But yeah, it's definitely a really good tool for freediving, especially the meditative side of things, and just being disciplined, having some self-discipline to practice and applying those skills in the water as well, like the mental skills and the strength training as well.
I see here in your bio that you said you're not the deepest diver, but you're seriously Zen. So just give us a little bit of insight into what your thinking is there.
Yeah, again, on the meditation side of diving, when you just really focus your mind, forget everything else that's going on around in your life, all the other people around, and just really get inside your body and concentrate on what you're doing in that moment, like being in the moment. For statics, for deep hangs, just try and concentrate completely in my head. And I'm aware of my body and I'm being relaxed, but generally I'm just sort of staying in my head and like overcoming any negative thoughts by much more positive thoughts, and learning to like use your mind to control the situation and not just giving in. Oh, this feels a bit uncomfortable, I've had enough. Just being able to be like, right, I know I'm strong, I know that I can do this, I know that I've got plenty of oxygen, and just staying with the strength and the positive feelings. That's what I've really enjoyed about freediving, is that it gives you that added confidence, that you learn more about yourself and you learn to overcome like the negative thoughts. The negative thoughts are usually super quick. Your mind will say, oh, I don't want to do this, or oh, what's the point? And then if you overcome that with like bigger, stronger thoughts, like, I know I can do this, this is good, I'm perfectly capable of doing things, it's really good. And it really helps like in the rest of my life as well. It's given me the confidence to go off on boats for months and just travel by myself, and just be like, I know I can do this, and just not give in to the little negative niggly thoughts.
Yeah. I saw that you did a hang at 30 meters for 4 minutes and 25 seconds. I think if you can do that, then it's you have you can transfer that skill over into other areas of your life for sure. That's quite a respectable amount of time at that depth. Was that a free immersion dive?
Yes, yeah, just like a super slow descent, staying down and getting comfortable at the bottom, and a super slow ascent as well. So it's just like the slow dives, which I enjoy because they're very meditative. It's very zen. It's like all the other thoughts leave, and it's quite like you don't really have to do a lot either. You're moving super slowly, so it's just nice. Yeah, it's nice down there, very quiet.
Yeah, I like that. I especially like free immersion with the nose clip and just feeling the sensation of the water on my eyes and also between my toes as well. It's I can really just drift away when I'm doing free immersion.
Yeah, for sure. It's very peaceful. Yeah.
So you're also you're a judge at freediving competitions in the Red Sea. Is that like an official IDA judge?
Yeah, I did my judge training with Pim a couple of years ago, and then I've been involved because Wendy was my instructor. I've been involved with the competition for a couple of years as well, and it's a really nice competition in our blue hole here in Dahab. So yeah, it's good training for people that are going on to bigger comps, and it's also good for people that just want to like dive in a competition used to the competition environment. It's quite stressful being a judge sometimes because everything happens super quickly when somebody's coming up and doing their surface protocol, and you've got to watch every little detail. But it's interesting as well because you get to see huge dives and people coming in and, you know, how they behave in the competition environment. And it's just a nice, friendly competition as well. So it's good practice and good fun.
Yeah, so that's just one particular competition that you adjudicate at.
Yes, basically because it's in Dahab and I'm in Dahab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the name of the competition?
The Red Sea Cup.
Oh, the Red Sea Cup, right.
Yeah, Wendy Tinnemans and Pim Vermeulen. I think that's how you say it.
Vermeulen, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you say it's quite stressful. It can be quite stressful being a judge at these competitions, I can imagine. When you're a judge, do you have someone else who's doing the same job as you during a dive, and then you both have to come to the same kind of conclusion? Or is it just one judge who has the last say?
Oh no, there's two judges, so we're watching each other as well as watching the diver, and we're both timing surface protocols. Like we're responsible for some of the safety as well because we're timing the dive, and like the other judge is telling the safety divers when to go. I'm holding the line, so I'm feeling for the turn and shouting turn when it's time to turn. And obviously, yeah, we're feeling the line that they're coming back up, and when they're surfacing, if anything should happen, we're right there as well to help intervene. Generally, people are pretty good, but occasionally we've had like LMCs and blackouts that you have to deal with as well. So, but we're a good team. There's usually 3 or 4 safety divers. There's 2 judges, and there's backup as well. Pim's been around competitions for a long time, and same with Wendy. They're very experienced people. So when we have had any issues, it's been really like straight away, really, really good help really quickly, and people have been fine. And obviously we have a doctor on shore as well. So yeah, but generally people are okay, and they're just, you know, they're enjoying themselves and getting over their nerves and learning to dive in competitions, which is a whole new field. So yeah, it's good work.
So you think this competition, the Red Sea Cup, is especially suitable for maybe first timers, people who are looking to maybe take it further in the competition scene, but without jumping straight to vertical blue or the World Championships or something like this?
For sure, yeah. And the timing of the Red Sea Cup is like 3 times a year, and it's designed to be before those big competitions. So some of the bigger divers are coming in and like using the Red Sea warm up before they go off and do like rattan or vertical blue or a big competition. So they just get into the, you know, the habit of the competition, and everyone, all the judges being there and everyone being there. And other people, because Dahab's a pretty small town, like all the freedivers know each other, and it's very laid back and friendly. So people get to do their first dives in a competition with us, and they know most of the people there. So it eases the stress somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's good. It's very good.
It's almost like a perfect training camp environment for those more elite athletes, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you've been volunteering with the Sea Shepherd for a number of years. For those of us who don't know, what exactly is the Sea Shepherd organization, and what do they do?
Sea Shepherd are the world's largest ocean-based conservation group. We have 9 boats, and we operate in different areas of the world. And basically, we're concerned with like frontline conservation work. So there's a range of projects between like looking after turtles on beaches and protecting turtle eggs, to the bigger boats, which are like go to the Antarctic every year to try and stop the Japanese taking big whales. So there's a whole range from the smallest marine life right up until our largest inhabitants, like the blue whales. We also do research on the inhabitants as well. So the last boat I was on, we were researching whales in the Sea of Cortez in Baja in Mexico. And we were with scientists and they were gathering data, photographic data, and also taking skin samples, biopsies of all the whales that come into that area for breeding purposes. So they're checking the breeding behaviour, also looking for microplastic and heavy metal pollution in the oceans by taking samples from the animals. So it's incredibly important and fascinating work, and especially at the moment, given the amount of pollution that we're facing in the oceans, we need to gather data pretty quickly to demonstrate that these are problems and they are issues, and then we need to then find solutions to tackle them and to protect the wildlife.
Hello friends, sorry to interrupt the show. We'll get back to that in just a moment, but first allow me to make a little call to action. Do you want to hear more episodes of the Freedive Café each month? At the moment you only get 2, but would you like 3 or even 4? Well, the way to do that is to become a supporter of the show by donating a few dollars each month through our Patreon page. The way it works is that once we hit 35 patrons, I'll start to release 3 episodes a month, and when we get to 50 patrons, I'll start putting out a special question and answer session with returning guests for a 4th monthly episode. An episode every week. How does that sound? The Freedive Café is a one-man operation. It's extremely time-consuming to arrange, record, and produce these episodes while working a full-time job. So by supporting the show, you keep me motivated and inspire me to produce more and better content. Most people donate between about $3 and $10 a month, but I like to suggest that you pledge the price of a coffee in your country. We are a cafe after all. If you want to be part of the Freedive Café Patreon tribe, go to the website and hit the support the podcast button, or go to patreon.com/freedivecafe. To all the current patrons, thanks a million. Big love to you all, and dive safe. Right. How long have you been working with Sea Shepherd?
My first campaign was in 2014, and I went to the Faroe Islands, which is about 200 miles north of Scotland, and they're controlled or owned by Denmark, sort of loosely controlled. They have a traditional whale hunt there every summer, and they basically drive entire pods of pilot whales and white-sided dolphins onto beaches using boats, and then when they get to the beach they slaughter them, and this happens in front of entire communities, so children watch this as well as the adults participating. And obviously because they're taking entire family pods of whales out of the ecosystem by killing them, nobody knows the effect this is having on the population of pilot whales. Pilot whales are known as data deficient, so people don't know. Nobody knows how many pilot whales there are. They're not a studied group at all. There's not much scientific information about pilot whales. So the effect of taking out these family pods and the genetic diversity by doing the killings is unknown, and like instinct tells us it's really not a good idea at the moment, given the depleted fish stocks and our human impact on our environment.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the pictures from this whale slaughter on the Faroe Islands, and it's absolutely mind-boggling, just the sheer number of whales that are involved here. And the sea is literally red with blood. It's incredible.
You know, it's insanity on a national scale, in my opinion. I've never really visited anywhere quite like that, and spending 3 months there just unfortunately concreted my views that the whole community, because they're quite isolated, you know, seems to think that this is still okay. Well, yeah, maybe 100 years ago when the food was needed, it was okay, but now, given the pollution levels in the meat, even their own doctors tell them they shouldn't be eating it. and that children and pregnant people and old people shouldn't be eating it at all because of the high levels of mercury, because it's a big animal that's been in the sea a long time. But they still carry on because they're very closed-minded and isolated, and they see it as a tradition they have to protect. But obviously, with the pressure from the outside world to say, come on, guys, it's 2017, we need to protect our oceans and conserve our wildlife, hopefully at some point the end is in sight, because it's just, insanity on a mass scale. It's nasty.
Is there any? Are there any indications yet, or are there any indications yet that there are health issues developing in the Faroe Islands communities because of the contamination in the whale meat?
Yeah, no, for sure. They've got high numbers of Parkinson's disease and things like that. There's basically because they've eaten this contaminated meat. And then mercury is a heavy metal. It stays in your body. So if you eat contaminated meat, you become contaminated. And for sure, that's why their doctors have started warning people not to eat the meat, because they've been told, that these are the health effects. And for sure, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and just quite nasty, degenerative illnesses are caused by ingesting large amounts of heavy metals. It's just like, you just shouldn't be doing it. Your human body isn't designed to deal with heavy metals in your system the same way that the whales aren't designed to deal with it. And it's all round bad news. So why it's still going on is very interesting. Sea Shepherd are taking legal steps now to try and tackle what the islanders are doing. We're basically being outlawed from being there. Their government changed the laws in 2015 that anybody trying to interfere with a whale killing or a mass whale killing would be arrested. So in 2015, people just got arrested, the boats got impounded, and Sea Shepherd decided there was no point sending any more people there because they're just going to get arrested, they're going to lose the boats. But they're working on using the laws in the European Parliament to stop what's happening.
Where does Sea Shepherd get its funding from? How do they pay for these? Because everything that you do is on a volunteer basis, right?
Yeah, generally. I mean, some of the boats, there's a couple of paid positions, like a captain or a chief engineer may get a small salary, but it's basically funded by people, which is they sell a lot of merchandise. Also, sometimes money comes in via national lotteries, but it's basically funded by individuals, which I think is one of its strengths as well, because it's not relying on government money. It's generating its own funds, and in generating the funds, it's raising awareness about the oceans. A lot of people know what Sea Shepherd is, they know what it does, and that's because people buy t-shirts and they buy merchandise and they go to events and they find out. That's basically how I got involved. I went to an event, there was a Sea Shepherd stall there, I talked to people and I was like, I think I need to do this. So I want to get involved and I want to be more active. I don't just want to be buying a t-shirt. I want to be on a boat. I want to be getting my sea miles. I want to be doing something.
So I saw a video in which you were the chef aboard the vessel Farley Mowat. Is that a position that you regularly take, or does it change every time?
I'm basically the cook now, because I found out that cooks are hard to come by on the boats, and my skills from working in England for many years in care homes, I've done a reasonable amount of cooking, and I'm a vegan anyway. They need vegan cooks. So the first time I went on was as a vegan cook. It's a massive task, but it's a huge support role for the rest of the boat, because obviously you're at sea, people need feeding. And people work super hard on the deck, and the officers are working really hard. People will always need food, 3, 4, 5 times a day. People are eating. So it's a big task, but I really enjoyed doing it as well, because I just felt like I'm doing something that's super important, and not everybody can do it. You can't have any form of seasickness, and you can't take any time off, because you're responsible for feeding up to 20 people 3 times a day. So you've just got to keep doing it. I did 4.5 months on my first boat, It's interesting because I got to travel to Mexico. I got to see the work we were doing. We were taking out illegal nets that are left in the sea, and so they're catching everything indiscriminately, just destroying wildlife. And it's just a dream of mine to be able to go and take these horrible nets out of the water and totally protect the wildlife that's there. It's just like, this is illegal. People shouldn't be doing it, but to actually be on a boat that's going and taking and removing these nets is incredible.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what kind of challenges are involved in providing meals on a ship several times a day to so many people, but I think you've just answered that question. It sounds like an incredibly difficult and important task, and I imagine it's also very satisfying as well.
Yeah, it is for sure. Because I mean, like, physically, you're confined to a boat, and you're spending all your time either in a galley or like asleep in your bunk. It's like there's not much in between. There's a little bit of socialising, but yeah, it's so satisfying. I've never like met a humpback whale, and the first time I met one, it was caught. This like juvenile one was caught in a net, and we were able to get close enough to the whale, take the small boats out, and remove all the net from this whale and free a humpback whale. And it was just like, you can't imagine moments like that, but it was amazing because the animal was in distress. She was coming to the surface and going down again, and like, you know, obviously upset. Her breathing was super heavy, and was close to death. If we hadn't have been there, certainly she would have just died. And to be able to like liberate an animal like that that's in that situation was incredible.
I imagine you're a pretty popular person on board as well. I mean, like, nobody really wants to piss you off, right?
That is one of the rules, that you're not meant to piss the cook off, but occasionally people would, because like you sort of like walking this line between providing food but not letting certain people eat the entire stock of food, because obviously we don't have unlimited storage when you're at sea for like 3 or 4 months. So yeah.
So while you were on board the Farley Mowat, what you said that you were taking nets out of the water, you were releasing captured wildlife. What kind of conclusion did you personally come to about the situation there? Like, what is happening in the oceans that most people sitting in their homes on land can't see? What's the big problem in the ocean that you really came close to there?
I mean, the huge problem is the overfishing and the illegal fishing. And I think that's what people don't realise. Like, I used to live like in a house, and you go to a shop and you buy, say, a tin of fish or some fish, and you just think, oh, there's plenty here in stock. But when you actually see what's happening in the oceans, like the bycatch is huge now. For one fish that gets eaten by a human, around 5 more die. So because there's more indiscriminate means of fishing, so many more fish are taken than are needed. So all the species are caught in these huge nets, and that can be sharks, that can be whales, that's turtles, that's the whole lot of the wildlife spectrum, down to crabs and everything. And the actual fish that goes on a plate will be like a fifth of that, because it's the species that people want to eat, and they don't want to eat these other species. And so much is just wasted. So much is just thrown back straight into the oceans dead, or it comes to land and it's used as animal feed. And again, it's just the state the oceans are in now, that we have fish stocks that are on massive decline. We've got species that have become extinct already, and we've got other species that are facing extinction pretty imminently. And with the amount of pollution, we need to just turn around what we do with our oceans. They're no longer somewhere we can go and look for food. They're not like that now. It's not like it was 10, 20 years ago, where there were bigger fish stocks. We really seriously need to rethink how we eat and our relationship with the oceans. We want to go and look at wildlife, but if all the wildlife is getting caught in nets or overfished or just being thrown away as bycatch, it's dispersing. You know, the amount of big fish that are left out there is less and less and less. We've got more and more boats trying to catch less and less fish.
Yeah, it's really situation critical now, isn't it?
Yeah. And when we look at statistics that say there might be more plastic in the ocean by 2050 than fish, we really need to look at what we're doing.
Hopefully the problem is not insurmountable. Many problems are not insurmountable. You mentioned that you were on board a ship that was doing research into a whale population. What kind of conclusion did you come to about the health of that species?
The sea that we're in, the Sea of Cortez in Baja, is a very interesting geographical place. It goes up to very shallow water in the far north of the sea. It's a breeding ground for a lot of species. It's also been illegal, and it's for fishermen, and it's protected from a lot of the heavy fishing practices that are happening in the rest of the world. The fishermen themselves there have also decided collectively to stop fishing in the breeding grounds through certain months of the year, because they've seen how much smaller and smaller and smaller year on year the fish that they're catching have become. So it's really interesting because they've come together and decided to protect their environment so that their kids, their grandkids, will be able to fish again. And the thing with fish is they breed pretty rapidly. I mean, you must have been in the ocean. You've seen huge schools of fish like here in the Red Sea, and there's thousands of small fish. So if you just leave those fish alone for a few months of the year, or don't fish at all in certain areas for 10, 20 years, the fish stocks bounce back quite well. The problem is when people are going into those fishing grounds, the breeding grounds, and taking everything and anything, then you destroy the ecosystem. But if you just leave certain areas alone, then the wildlife comes back pretty rapidly. And there's areas there that were nearly finished, extinct, and now they're really healthy reefs again with all of the apex predators, the sharks and the fish. And then obviously the whales are coming in to breed, and the stocks have recovered.
So there's very hopeful signs that if we just take these simple actions, that we really can let the oceans recover and come back to their previous health.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the whales have recovered. A lot of the whale species were nearly extinct, and then there was a worldwide moratorium during the 80s, and all the countries were like, right, we're going to leave whales alone. And then they recovered. The problem is now that certain countries like Japan are like, oh, there's a few more whales, we're going to start fishing and killing them again. It's it needs to be left alone for a lot longer than that. There were stories when boats used to go to the Antarctic that they would have to stop for 24 hours to let pods of whales cross, because there were so many whales, thousands of whales in a pod. And you'd have to stop your boat and wait. And then there's nowhere left like that on the planet at the moment, with that population of the very big creatures. But if you leave them alone, maybe we can get back to that state, and that would be amazing. We're also responsible. Each person is responsible for their choice of food, and you don't have to eat fish. You just don't have to. It's you can do that. Each person, you don't have to go on a Sea Shepherd boat. You don't have to be a diver. You can just make that choice every time that you eat or you think about eating. I will leave fish alone, and they'll come back. Yeah, it's that's better.
You said that in this region in Mexico, the local fishermen came to the conclusion that they needed to take action to bring back the health of their oceans. How do because this is one of the biggest problems that we have, is that there are communities all around the world, millions and millions of people who have relied on fishing, on taking from the ocean for their livelihoods for hundreds or even thousands of years. And in many of those communities, they don't have the exposure to knowledge about what's happening in the oceans on a grand scale. They might not, they just might not be able to afford to take action. How can you approach locals and people who are fishing from a traditional standpoint and encourage them to join in the conservational aspects? How do you encourage them to step back and take a look and realize that they need to make their livelihood in a different way, or make their livelihood in the same way but change the way they're going about it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Sea Shepherd as a group isn't anti-fishing. we're anti-illegal fishing and anti-overfishing, which is a slightly different track on it, because you can't go to a poor country and say to people who've got no alternatives, can you just stop doing that, please? It's never going to work. It's interesting in a lot of places, like Sea Shepherd are now working off the coast of Gabon, and Gabon is a relatively poor African country. The fishermen that have overfished in Europe and cleaned out the Mediterranean have now started looking a little bit further afield, and they're looking along the coast of Africa. And the government there has basically asked Sea Shepherd to come and help police their waters so that their small fishermen can still carry on fishing in their traditional ways, but that they can keep out the big trawlers and the super killing machine 24/7 trawlers, and then keep them out of their waters to protect their fish stock, because they understand that if the big trawlers come in and they use these Persine nets, which is basically like you put a net out and it's a big circle, and then you draw it up from the center, and again it catches everything, like including whales to crabs. It will take everything, and the government there recognise that if fishing like that happens in their waters, that their fish stocks will be devastated. Also, in some of the areas in Mexico, fishermen have kept their boats and they've turned their skills to ecotourism. So they found that people like to go get in the water with sharks, and they like to see the whales up close. And they're earning just as much money, if not more, by taking people out to look at the environment and to appreciate and take pictures and get in the water, and just a change. It's like you can't say to people, like, stop doing this and you've got nothing else to do. You have to offer alternatives. So ecotourism and protecting the small fishermen that are fishing from the shore is at least a couple of ways that people can do that.
Does freediving factor into your work in the Sea Shepherd at all? Or is it just is that purely recreational outside of the organization?
I got to do some filming this year when we were on the research boat, and that was really, really nice to be able to get in the water, because obviously for a freediver, spending a long time on the water and not being able to get in it is quite torturous. Yeah. But we were collecting. It was hard. The first couple of times I did it, it was super hard to be that close to the water and not get in. But because we were filming, and Sea Shepherd does a lot of media work, like we're showing people, this is the wildlife that you're protecting, here's the beautiful sea lions playing in the water, here's the mantas and here's the dolphins. It was really nice because I did get to go in the water and do filming. With my friend Carolina, who's the main media lady on the boat. But that was amazing, and to get up close and personal with the sea lions was fantastic.
It sounds amazing. You said that freedivers are in a unique position to promote ocean awareness. What ways do you think we can achieve this?
Yeah, I think because we spend so much of our time in the water and we rely on clean water and clean oceans, especially when you've got students and you're an instructor, you're in the water, you want to be raising awareness for people. I had quite a few students that were like, I want to do freediving because I want to be a spear fisherman. I'm like, why do you want to be a spear fisherman? And I talked to them a little bit about conservation work. I talked to them about the state of the oceans. And, several of them were like, okay, there's other ways to be in the water. There's other ways to be involved in the water without just going for that straightforward image of, I'll be a spear fisherman. There's a big culture here in Egypt with the guys that they want to be spear fishermen because their friends are doing it, and it's interesting to show people there's alternatives. You don't have to just kill that fish to be like, oh, look at me, I'm in the water. You can have an amazing picture of you and some wildlife. You don't have to do that. It's like there's other ways, and I think because we're often people's gateway into the oceans, it's an interesting perspective that you could say to somebody, there's other ways, and did you know this, and did you know that, and just to sort of give people little seeds of information, and then for them to just grow using their imaginations to sort of find a way of being in the oceans and being in harmony with our environment, and seeing what they do with it.
And as far as spearfishing goes, Do you think we've reached a point now where, because a lot of spear fishermen and women will say, well, we're just taking what we eat only, one person catches one fish, one person eats the fish, this kind of thing. Do you think we've reached a point where they really have to think twice about what they're doing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I've also, I know a lot of people like to say that, oh, I only take the fish that I need. But I mean, I've seen plenty of pictures with a heck of a lot of fish lying on the bottom of a boat after a few spearfishermen have been out there for a few hours. So I'm not entirely convinced by those arguments. And for sure, you're only taking the fish that you can see in front of you. You're not using a net, and a net is far more destructive. But a lot of spearfishermen are aiming to take bigger fish and be like, oh, look, this is bigger than your fish. And therefore they are taking out the breeders and the older fish of the fish stocks, and those are the fish that are really disappearing because they're the ones that are 10 or 20 years old. And if you remove all those fish, again, you having an impact on your environment. And some people like to say, oh, well, it's sustainable, and maybe it is, but given we don't really know and we don't have crystal ball, then I see it as a risky occupation for people to be taking out these fish and not replacing them in any way and not having any positive impact on their environment. There's a lot of things you could be doing to actually protect your ocean rather than eating it, literally eating it. And, that affects all of us. If we don't have clean oceans, we don't have clean air. And that doesn't just affect the spearfishermen, that affects everybody that's living on this planet. So it'd be nice to see more awareness, more positive actions by people who are spending so much time in the oceans. I mean, I've got friends like William Winram, and he does lots and lots of work promoting protection of sharks because that's the species that he's really into is his sharks. And people that are in these public positions, if they actually use their public influence to say to the younger freedivers coming into the sport, look, you could be doing this, you could be doing that. You don't just have to be a spearfisherman. You could be doing other things. And for sure, having, pictures and diving with sharks, that's quite intense stuff as well. So it's a really strong, positive image that people can get out of freediving.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that, especially we seem to have reached a point now where the condition of the fish generally is guaranteed to be bad as well, right? I mean, pretty much all fish are contaminated in some way, whether it's with microplastics or PCBs or heavy metals. It seems like there's not really like a healthy fish that you can eat. So why would you want to do that to yourself, let alone do it to the fish itself?
Yeah, for sure. There was a really interesting quote from Enzo about years ago when he was spearfishing, and he had this big struggle to finally kill this fish underwater, and he could feel its heart beating. And in that moment, he just decided that there was no point doing this anymore. There were other things he could be doing in the water apart from killing the fish. And for sure, now with the levels of pollution and toxins in the fish, it's not even a healthy food to eat anymore. It's still promoted as that because there's still a huge industry making tons of money telling you that it's healthy. But actually, in this day and age, I don't buy it anymore. I certainly don't eat it. And it's just not true anymore. Things have changed. Things aren't like 10, 20, 30 years ago. Things are changing, and we need to respond to those changes in a positive way. And I know that we can, collectively, I think deep down, we all understand a lot of these issues, but maybe it's easier just to not actually engage with it and to not hear this stuff. But it's real and it's happening. And once you wake up and you ignore all the messages from big industry, you know it. You instinctively know it, that here in the Red Sea, over the decade that I've been in the Red Sea and seeing the fish, they're smaller, they're fewer. Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, there was a study that came out recently. They did a study on fish in I think it was the UK market, and they found that every single one of the species that was investigated had some plastic in it. or at least a great percentage of the fish they studied had some plastic in it. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty terrible, the situation right now.
Yeah, and again, it's one of these interesting human situations. It's solvable. Just stop eating fish, stop supporting the big guys that bring to your table, and leave the breeding grounds alone, and the fish will sort themselves out. It just, we need to interfere less. So yeah, it's solvable, and there's definitely still hope. When you see the amount of small fish that are born every year in the Red Sea here, then I know that there's lots and lots of fish out there still. It's just not interfering with their breeding cycles and not catching them before they've had babies, and not taking these small fish. And because people becoming aware of that, if they have to eat fish, so that they should be eating a bigger fish that has actually reproduced and not taking the small juveniles.
Yeah. Did you say you were friends with William Winram?
Yeah, he was in Dahab a couple of years ago training, and we spent an awful lot of time talking about pilot whales and sharks and stuff, because common interest. And I really respect what he does as well, because he's used his world record status to promote conservation work, and I think that's a brilliant thing to do. I've got tons of respect for him.
Are there any marine conservation projects around the world that you've heard about or seen for yourself that you're especially excited about? For example, last year I was in the Gili Islands in Indonesia, and I saw the biorocks, the reef regeneration structures that they have around the Gili Islands there, and I was amazed by just how well they work, and how simple they are to make. Is there anything else like that you are really excited about?
Yeah, there's a lot of projects growing corals. It doesn't happen here, which is frustrating because we've got an interesting political system. But there's a project called I Am Water, and I know Sarah Campbell was involved with this one as well, where taking younger children and getting them to free dive and getting them to explore the water, but on a conservation tip and that's really, really nice, because obviously education is a huge part of conservation work. When people have more information and they can gain education about their environment and the ocean environment, people tend to want to protect it as well. They find out about it and they're like, oh, this fish is this fish is really cute. It's my favorite fish. This is where it lives. This is where it breeds. And then people have that connection that they want to make the protection for those species. And especially with young people, if you can get them into the water, get them engaged in the water, then that's definitely a future movement that's super, super strong and super important. There's a guy here I met the other day, and he's going to make a little phone app for visitors to Dahab, which basically they can get the pictures of the fish, and then when they come back to land, and then they can look at this app and then find out more information about the fish. Because one of the things that we were talking about is the disconnect between people. Like, you go to the shop and you buy a bit of fish, but when you're here and you're by the ocean, that you can get into the water, you can see the fish with your own eyes, and then you can find out more information about their habits and their lifestyle. And then you have a connection to that animal, and you're much, much less likely to want to harm it, and you're more likely to want to protect it and get involved and, help that species. And education is a huge part of what we do with Sea Shepherd, and what the local groups here do in Dahab, and what I Am Water does, is get people educated, get people excited about the underwater environment, and get them to, befriend it, make friends with it, become a guardian of the underwater territories. And I think if we all get involved and we all do a little bit, lots of little things add up to a big impact, and hopefully a big positive impact.
In Dahab, you run Egypt's only fully vegan restaurant. How did the restaurant get started?
Yeah, it was sort of by chance. I came back, and my landlord, Mohammed, has a restaurant, and he was like, "What, do you want to run the restaurant?" And I thought about it for about a whole minute or two, and I was like, yeah, why not? I cook a lot more on the boats. And I just thought, yeah, do you know what? That's actually, I think Dahab needs something like that, so that we have a bit more information, a bit more education about like what's happening with the environment here. Also, a lot of freedivers like enjoy lighter food. So there's a lot of freedivers that come here. And again, just people that haven't got a clue about the food and their environment and the connection between food and the environment. So it's nice to have people come and ask me questions, and I can answer them and give them really nice food to eat as well. And they're usually quite, impressed. They're expecting vegan food to be dull and boring and a few beans. And when they find out that there's vegan ice cream and vegan chocolate and cakes, they're usually enjoying it.
Yeah, they cheer up a little bit after that. Once they find out there's vegan ice cream, it kind of changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's it. I'm basically, trying to offer people an alternative as well, because I think people see, if they give up eating fish or give up eating meat, that it's just going to be dull and boring. And actually, there's a whole new world of food out there that they can get involved with, and it's food that actively protects your reef. So you get to eat something nice, and you're doing something positive for the environment. So win-win.
Can you tempt us with some descriptions of the dishes that you have on offer there?
So cake-wise this week I've got a triple cake that's made with raw chocolate, so it's really high antioxidants, so it's a really good post-dive treat that you can have. I've got a fresh mango cake as well. Again, it's no sugar and no dairy, so just fruit and nuts, so that's super tasty. And then I do a different range of veggie burgers in the evening as well, so that people get to have a bigger meal in the evening, something to wind down with. Yeah, we've got a good range of food going on here now. One thing we've got good in Egypt is we get lots of really nice fruit and vegetables. Nothing is packed in plastic, so you can just go to the shop with a cloth bag, grab loads of nice fruit and veggies, and then I can then invent new things using what I find here.
It sounds amazing. I really hope to come and try it out for myself sometime.
Where are you based?
I'm in Taiwan.
Okay.
So it's going to be a while, but I'll get there eventually.
Exactly. Cool.
Why is a vegan lifestyle or a plant-based lifestyle important or beneficial with regards to environmentalism and ocean conservation? Obviously, we're not eating any fish, so that's obvious, but beyond that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people don't realize with the meat industry and what it's become over the last decades is a lot of these huge animal farms, the runoff, the waste products, basically the feces and the urine, ends up in the water system. So initially it's going into rivers, but that ends up in the groundwater, that ends up in the oceans. And there's whole areas now near the American coasts that are basically ocean dead zones. And the reason that's happened is because these huge high levels of nutrients and chemicals that are used on the farms end up in the oceans. And basically a lot of the species that were living there have either died or moved out of those environments. And we're creating ocean dead zones. And the impact that overeating meat products has on the oceans is also huge. There's a connection there. And again, I think people, when you're just in an urban environment and you go to a shop and you buy some meat, you're not seeing the food chain and you're not seeing the extended food chain. And there's always this argument, people go, oh, well, soya from rainforests, that's what you're eating when you're a vegan. But 90% of the soya that's grown in a destroyed rainforest is going for animal food. So again, you're extending that huge food chain, and we're already consuming quite a lot of resources. And if you extend it again, that you're growing one crop to feed to an animal that you then eat the animal, you're just extending that food chain, and it's unnecessary. You don't need to eat animals to get protein. The best protein is rice and beans, and it's cheap, and it's simple, and it's affordable. And, anybody can access rice and beans. It's not a middle class Western luxury item. It's available everywhere.
Yeah, I was just, before we started the call, I was just preparing my lentils for the week. So I have some red lentils, and I just put them in a pot to soak, maybe about 1,000, a kilo, and then I'll cook those lentils up tomorrow morning, and I'll be good for the rest of the week. So, it's amazing how many people I talk to who just don't get it, that I survive and I thrive on a plant-based diet, just whole foods, and everything I make myself. And they always say, like, I don't have time to prepare food, I don't know how to cook. If you just combine a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds together in any way that you like, you can't really go wrong, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's not, it's not brain surgery. It's not that difficult. And yeah, when people get a little bit more connected with what they're eating and their food and their environment, it gives you a good feeling as well. It's a nice thing to do. You're using a lot less plastic and packaging, and yeah, a good variety of food it's a healthy way to be. It's a super diet for freedivers as well, because you want light, easy, digestible food. You don't want to have heavy food that sits in your intestine for too long. You want to have food that's nice and digestible, and your body can get the nutrients nice and quickly. So yeah, it's a win-win thing.
Yeah. So what are the plans for the future then, Sheila? Are you planning to stay in Dahab permanently? How is there anything long term envisioned?
I'm not sure. I decided I'd have a year off being on boats, because I've spent the last couple of years like 6 months on, 6 months off, and I thought I needed to spend a year in one place. So I've spent 3 months in one place now, and I'm already struggling with that as a concept. So I may well, go off somewhere in the winter to find somewhere interesting to dive. Hopefully another Sea Shepherd chef is going to come and take over the restaurant when I'm not here, so that the restaurant carries on and it's here for people when they need it and when they're training. Longer than that, not sure. I'm sure I'm going to be getting them back on a boat soon at some point, even though I said I have a year off. I think I'll be back on one sooner than that. Yeah, and just like more of the same, really. The more I find out about the oceans and the more I find out about conservation work and the environment, the more I want to do. And there's plenty of work that needs doing. So I'm just going to keep on that track. I've got the restaurant now, and that's a really good base for people to have these conversations. It's really nice. A lot of people, young people that come here to learn freediving, also are interested in conservation and ocean work, and I can point them in the right direction to get involved with Sea Shepherd. And that's really, really nice, because I know that like a lot of people want to do it. And when I say, look, just do the application form, get involved, make contact with this organisation, you'll probably get on a boat sooner or later, and they'll just look over the moon, because it's just like something that a lot of people want to do. They want to go and see whales, they want to see sharks, they want to actively help. And we're often conditioned that we can't do things as individuals, we have no impact. But that's not true. It's like, as individuals, we can do stuff. We have a lot of impact. When I see people like William and other people that are like really involved in conservation work, it's like, yeah, there you go. That's what one person can do. They can get other people interested. They can, make them more interested, and yeah, just get them enlightened and involved and doing something. And we can do things. We are powerful in ourselves.
Yes, and it's a very important message. A lot of people just don't realize the potential that they have to make change.
Yeah, for sure. We're sort of told to sort of stay indoors and be consumers and not think too much for ourselves, and that's a silly thing to do. But actually, yeah, it always takes just individuals and groups of people to make positive changes, and it's super important now. The one thing that links all of us, wherever we live, whatever our lifestyles are, and whatever our religions are or belief systems are, is the environment. Like, it's the one thing we share. There's no borders in the air, there's no borders in the oceans, and we can have a positive impact on our environment. We can preserve it.
Yeah, and it's certainly one thing that we can't do without as well. If the listeners would like to find you on social media, do you have any like a Facebook page or a website or something like that, or should they just come to Dahab and look you up?
Well, they come to Dahab. I mean, the restaurant page is called Marine Garden Camp, and so it's got a Facebook page which is Marine Garden Camp. On Instagram, I use my own name, so Sheila Hanney. So if you want to look at food pics there. And same on Facebook, I just use my own name, which is Sheila Hanney.
If anyone's listening and would like to get in touch with Sheila, check out her food pictures and things like that, then I'll put those links in the show notes. I'll also link to the Sea Shepherd organization, so if someone is interested in finding out more and possibly taking it further and volunteering, they can easily find Sea Shepherd too. Just one more question, Sheila. I always like to find out if you have a book or an author that you would like to recommend to the listeners.
There's some good ones by Paul Watson, because he's obviously the founder of Sea Shepherd, and there's some interesting books that he's written. I think Confessions of an Eco-Terrorist, that's a good read. So yeah, I'd recommend that one.
Okay, Confessions of an Eco-Terrorist. Sounds good. I'll pick up a copy. It's a bit too late for a coffee here. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and enjoy the cooling weather over there in Dahab, and enjoy the water and the good food, and hopefully can talk to you again in the future sometime.
All right, nice one. Thanks, Dolly.
Okay, thank you, Sheila.
Yeah, speak soon.
Have a nice day.
And you, bye.
That was Sheila Hanney. It was lovely talking to her in Dahab. I really hope I get the chance in the not too distant future to visit her there in person and check out some of those amazing desserts, those amazing vegan desserts she cooks up in her restaurant. Did you like the episode? Did you like the different slant today with the focus on ocean conservation? Let me know what you think. But I think if we're going to play in our oceans for the rest of our lives, we need to be educated on what is happening in them at the very least, and do our own part, no matter how small, to protect our playground. I'm on Facebook as Donny Mac. My Instagram is Donny McFar, DonnyMcFar. Feel free to add me and get in touch with questions and suggestions. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And as always, dive safe.